Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, the new Hanover County Democrat Party in disarray after two major controversies. We'll get into all the details coming up. And a good Monday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can be part of the program or listen to it anytime in your favorite podcast app by simply searching for the Nick Craig Show. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our program this morning is brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online at lawgroupnc.com or give them a call, 910-251-6088. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. Back a few weeks ago, we brought you some controversies out of New Hanover County as it related to a school board candidate who had won in the primary. That, of course, was in early March, back just a couple of weeks ago, as it related to the fact that Rick Southerland, who was the candidate that won in that contest, was living with a registered sex offender. We went through those details. There was a growing public frustration and pushback on that story that forced Southerland just days later to announce that he would be dropping out of the contest, that he would not be seeking election in November, leaving what is now an open seat for the New Hanover County Democrat Party to fill. That controversy in itself was enough to, in my vantage point, mar the New Hanover County Democrat Party. There's an update on that story that I've got details on, plus some pretty shocking allegations against a Wilmington City councilwoman and her husband, accusing him of aggressive behavior and sexual harassment. We'll get into all of those details as we work through the show here on this Monday. A very tough time for Democrats in New Hanover County. And it's probably important to take a step back and kind of lay the landscape as to why New Hanover County is such a relevant county here in North Carolina. And it's because it's a swing county. It's obviously not as large or anywhere near as large as a Raleigh, a Wake County, a Charlotte, or a Mecklenburg. Nowhere near the size. It's landlocked. It's geographically the second smallest county in the state of North Carolina. However, it is commonly referred to as a bellwether county, meaning the way that New Hanover County goes often kind of sets the trend for the way in which the state as a whole goes, due to its very unique voter makeup in New Hanover County, where you've got unaffiliateds, which remain the largest group of voters in New Hanover, followed by Republicans, then Democrats. It very much mirrors, obviously on a much smaller scale, but it very much mirrors the state as a whole, which statewide, unaffiliated's the largest. Republicans just back a couple of months ago overtaking Democrats as the second largest, or technically, depending if you look at it, the first party in terms of registered voters, and then the Democrats. So unaffiliateds, Republicans, Democrats is the breakdown in the state and in New Hanover County. So there's a lot of emphasis put on this area, as it is often, again, kind of deemed this bellwether, this kind of barometer for the way in which New Hanover County falls, which of course hosts the city of Wilmington, the way in which the rest of the state could potentially go. And it can give you kind of an interesting insight as to where unaffiliated voters are falling on a litany, a variety of different topics and issues. So let's start off on this school board controversy. As I mentioned, not only is it bad enough that Rick Southerland did not bother telling the Democrat Party or the voters or the public that he was living with a registered sex offender. However, what we are finding out now in a new criminal complaint that was filed, a federal criminal complaint filed last week, is James Osborne, who allegedly is Southerland's partner, lives with him. He has now been charged with illegally voting in 2 elections. James Osborne faces 2 federal charges: false statements on voter registration and false statements on voter ballots. Osborne shares an address with Rick Southerland, who, as I mentioned, withdrew from the New Hanover County School Board race back just a couple of weeks ago after it was revealed that he was living with a convicted sex offender. The complaint alleges that Osborne illegally voted in the November the 5th, 2024 presidential election, illegally registering to vote on November the 4th, 2025, as well as illegally voting during the early voting period this year, back on February the 25th for the March the 3rd primary election. Why is this the case? Well, Osborne was convicted in April of 2021 in U.S. District Court in the Eastern District of Virginia, so just to our north, on charges of possession of child pornography. He was sentenced to 36 months in prison and 15 years of unsupervised release. Now, he has served and did in fact serve his 36 months in prison. I don't know that he served a full sentence, but he is out on supervised release, but still very well within that 15-year period, meaning he is still serving his time, right? The old saying, you do the crime, you do the time. These years of unsupervised release are still part of the time, quote unquote, that he is doing for the charges in which not only was he alleged, but he pled guilty to. It's an important part of the story. He pled guilty to these charges in federal court. So here's where things get interesting in North Carolina. Under state law in North Carolina, individuals serving a felony sentence, including probation, post-release supervision, or parole, are ineligible to vote. That is pretty standard. If you are a felon and you still have those felony charges hanging over your head, if you are still serving, in the case of James Osborne, some level of years of supervised release, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long the sentence is, you are still a registered, or you're still a convicted felon, and under state law in North Carolina, you are not allowed to vote. Your voting rights have not yet been restored, which is one of the things that you lose when you are convicted of a felony. That is, and that's just how that process plays out. Every state is different as it relates to what is called felon voting, but in North Carolina, the laws, the rules are very clear. If you're still dealing with anything as it relates to a previous felony, you are not allowed to register to vote. Those rights are stripped away. So according to court documents, his supervised release began on January the 26th, 2023, and obviously continues all the way through 2038 under that 15-year time. According to the federal complaint, Osborne allegedly certified on his November the 5th, 2024 authorization to vote form, also known as an ATV, that he had not been convicted of a felony or had completed his sentence. He decided to lie on that form and cast his ballot at an elementary school in Leland, just across the river in Brunswick County. On November the 4th, 2025, Osborne allegedly submitted a provisional voting application and registration form in New Hanover County, where Rick Southerland was running as a Democrat in the school board primary, attesting under the penalty of perjury that he was not currently serving a felony sentence, which is obviously a lie because he is dealing with 15 years of supervised release. So he lied on the form in 24, lied on the form in 25, and once again lied on the form in 26. February the 25th of this year rolls around and once again submitted an early voting application attesting that he had not been convicted of a felony or had completed his sentence. Court records also allege that Osborne violated his supervised release twice. In October of 2024, the records say he tested positive for illegal substances and was placed on a 60-day curfew with electronic monitoring. Once again, the next year, in April of 2025, he once again tested positive for illegal substances and received another 60-day curfew. He was arrested on Thursday, that was March the 26th, and is scheduled to appear in federal court coming up Tuesday morning. That's March the 31st, tomorrow at 9:30 a.m., as this case is now being prosecuted by the feds, with the FBI looking into some of these details as well, as James Osborne, who pled guilty in federal court in Virginia back a couple of years ago to obtaining and possessing child pornography, has now proven that he cannot simply fill out a form attesting that he is still a convicted felon and does not have the right to vote. So obviously the story to me laid out pretty clearly. This is a dishonest individual. This is an individual that can clearly not follow the law, can clearly not follow the rules that are laid out explicitly and very clearly in state law. If you are still serving your sentence, that is a felony, you are not allowed to vote. It is as clear, as cut as dry as possible. And he attested 3 different times that he was not a felon or had completed his sentence. All 3 of those occasions were not true. Yet he was still able to cast a vote. And for somebody like me, somebody like you voting in New Hanover County, James Osborne in 2024, 2025, and 2026 literally nullified your vote. Right? If you voted for one candidate and he voted for the other, 1 and 1, they kind of cancel each other out. He nullified your vote as a non-legal somebody that is able to vote. He does not have the right to do that. This is to me and to you should be a major, major problem. That individuals who are in these circumstances, in these situations, are registering to vote and then actually casting a ballot. And this is not the first time that we've seen this level of controversy in New Hanover County. There was a Canadian citizen just indicted back found guilty and is set to be sentenced soon, just a couple of months ago for the same thing. He's been in the United States on a green card since the 70s, which is legal. You're obviously allowed to do that. But what he was not allowed to do was to register to vote because he was not a U.S. citizen. However, because he was a Democrat and because he hates Donald Trump so much, he registered to vote, voted against Donald Trump, and bragged to his coworkers about voting for Trump as a green card resident, not a legal U.S. citizen. So he has now been indicted by a federal court and will likely serve some jail time, as he should, for literally nullifying my vote and your vote here in New Hanover County. Great comment coming in on our Rumble live chat this morning. Clearly, there is nothing wrong with our current voter laws because people who can't vote obviously don't. Of course, right? No issue there at all. There's got to be a better way to deal with this. I mean, you've got individuals attesting under the penalty of perjury to these acknowledgments. I'm not a convicted felon. I'm not serving a term. If I was convicted, I've completed my sentence. However it's written, I will admit, as I have never had a felony hanging over my head, that's not something I really read too much into because it is not relevant to me and not relevant to many of you as well. So it's not something you read too closely, but I would imagine if I was in that situation, I would make sure what I was signing, that I knew what I was doing. And it seems pretty obvious to me that James Osborne clearly knew what he was doing, obviously knows that he's under his supervised release. He had 2 different 60-day curfews with electronic monitoring because he obviously couldn't stop getting high or drunk when he was on this supervised release. And so it's just a disaster of a human being from all stretch of the imagination. And he has decided that he was not only going to do everything that he has done in the past, but that he was going to illegally register to vote in both Brunswick and New Hanover County and nullify law-abiding citizens' rights to cast a ballot, which is essentially what he was doing. So he is, again, due in federal court tomorrow morning at 9:30. I'll be keeping a very close eye on that. We'll bring you the details as soon as we get it right here on the Nick Craig Show. On to the other controversy that we are following in southeastern North Carolina. We just talked about Rick Southerland, James Osborne, the controversy there as it relates to school board. There's another story that is relatively new in the press coming out Sunday night. WECT News reporting the details that the New Hanover County Democratic Party has filed a grievance against David Andrews. That name sounds familiar to you? Well, he is the husband of Wilmington City Council member Celeste Andrews, who recently just ran in the New Hanover County Commission primary. She currently serves as a Democrat on the Wilmington City Council, which I'll note is once again 7-0 Democrat. She currently serves on council, ran in the Democrat primary to become a county commissioner, or at least a candidate for county commissioner coming up in November later on this year. She was unsuccessful in that bid, and now her husband is being accused by the Democrat Party of aggressive behavior and sexual harassment. According to WECT News, the grievance accuses David Andrews of being aggressive towards other council members, county commissioners, and party leadership at various events. The party claims that he sexually harassed and touched Democrat Party candidates without their consent. According to his wife, Celeste Andrews, he is currently disputing these claims. So there's a couple of different things that are laid out in this lengthy letter from the New Hanover County Democrat Party. We'll start with the aggressive behavior. On September the 10th, 2025, at a campaign event for Roy Cooper in Wrightsville Beach, the grievance alleges that David Andrews inappropriately confronted New Hanover County Commissioner Steph Walker while he was inebriated. For those that are not following along and playing at home, that means he was drunk. The grievance says that he was, quote, ranting loudly, using profane language and speaking negatively about several elected officials, including council member David Joyner, who is a Democrat and serves with his wife on the Wilmington City Council. When Joyner passed by David Andrews, no surprise he was at the event, it was an event for Roy Cooper, David Andrews allegedly began berating him loudly in front of several other people. So that was September the 10th, 2025. Flash forward a couple of months, December the 16th, 2025. The grievance alleges that David Andrews intimidated and berated the chairwoman of the New Hanover County Democrat Party, Jill Hopman. The complaint reads, Mr. Andrews yelled at Chair Hopman, accusing her of favoring his wife's primary opponents and threatening to file a grievance against her while standing inches from her face and continually poking his finger into her chest. Party leadership wrote in the grievance, Chair Hopman wondered if he would hit her, which, I mean, is obviously if the situation plays out as laid out here in the grievance, is obviously a real risk and a real threat. At this event on December the 16th, it's not immediately clear whether he was inebriated or not, or whether there was any sort of activities taking place around alcohol. But that was, again, just a couple of months later on December the 16th, leading into the primary in which his wife, Celeste Andrews, was running to be one of the Democrat candidates to face off against Leanne Pierce and Richard Collier, the two Republicans running for county commission in New Hanover County, that when that was taking place. And it was a pretty contentious primary. You had Rob Zappel, who currently sits on the commission, a Democrat. You've got Celeste Andrews, who currently serves on the Wilmington City Council as a Democrat, running in the primary. Judy Justice, who currently sits on the New Hanover County Board of Education, also a Democrat, running in the primary. So 3 individuals currently serving other offices in New Hanover County, and then a 4th candidate as well who would end up winning and winning in that primary. So you had 3 elected officials, 1 on the county commission, 1 on the school board, 1 on the city council, running in a contest for 2 seats, and it was rather contentious on the Democrat side of the aisle. And I guess that David Andrews took it upon himself to get brought into the fray on that on not only September the 10th, but December the 16th of last year. Let's flash forward now to late February of this year, 2026. Jill Hopman, once again, the chairwoman of the local Democrat Party, claims that she received a call on February the 25th from an individual known as Jenny Wells Thompson, who is a current candidate for clerk of Superior Courts. Thompson allegedly told her that on February the 22nd, so a couple of days before the phone call, at a New Hanover County Democrat fundraiser on Figure 8 Island, she was sexually harassed and touched by David Andrews. According to the grievance, specifically, Miss Miss Thomas said that Mr. Andrews, while inebriated at the event, spoke to her incoherently and, quote, slapped her ass, according to the grievance. So yet another situation, which, political fundraisers, I've been to plenty in my time. There tends to be alcoholic beverages that are flowing, but it would appear at this point, according to the grievance from the New Hanover County Democrat Party, that Mr. David Andrews has a problem going to these public events and drinking, where it seems like he gets out of control and starts yelling, and in this case, touching individuals in a sexual manner at these events. Hotman says that she sought advice from Judge Ricardo Jensen, as well as the North Carolina Democrat Party chairwoman Anderson Clayton, as well as other individuals, including attorney Steve Coggins. Clayton said that if Hoffman didn't file the grievance, that the North Carolina Democrat Party would file one on its own, since the misconduct has now been reported to the party as a whole. Judge Jensen allegedly offered to talk to David Andrews. When they spoke on February the 28th, Andrews allegedly denied any wrongdoing and said that it was a defamatory attack to damage his wife's candidacy in her race for county commission. Hotman reached out to other other female Democratic candidates after hearing a tip that there were more women that might have had stories. One candidate, unnamed, from the 2024 election, who was remaining anonymous, said that she felt that David Andrews behaved inappropriately when they would see each other at campaign events and at polling centers. The candidate, again anonymously, said that every time Mr. Andrews saw her, he would make weird comments like, "Oh, you're so beautiful," while touching her arm, stroking her hair, or hugging her. She said that he, quote, went right up to the line but didn't cross it. Hotman claims she also heard from the philanthropic director of the Planned Parenthood South Atlantic, Lee Johnson, who said that at a baby shower for the state executive committee members on January the 5th, 2025, she greeted Andrews, who then allegedly put his hands very snugly and low on the waist, then hugging her and growling in a sexual way, according to the grievance. Johnson allegedly pulled away promptly and told him that he needed to greet her professionally. Wow. It's quite the litany of allegations against David Andrews, the husband of Wilmington City Council member Celeste Andrews. Berating people at events, essentially groping and touching women inappropriately. Not the allegations that you would like to see as when your significant other, your spouse, is a current sitting member of the Wilmington City Council. And so this is all building on this controversy that is currently facing the Democrat Party. You've got Rick Southerland again pulling out of the school board race after winning in the primary back on March the 3rd because he's living with a registered sex offender who pled guilty to possessing child pornography in the state of Virginia. His partner is then voting illegally in elections, casting ballots, nullifying ballots that are cast by law-abiding registered voters across New Hanover County and Brunswick County. Now you've got David Andrews, the husband of Celeste Andrews, touching women inappropriately and just generally being what seems like a complete asshole at events across New Hanover County, being a complete and total jackass at these events, getting inebriated, drinking too much, and grabbing women inappropriately. So things really not chugging along all that well for the local New Hanover County Democrat Party. More on this story as it relates to David Andrews, his wife, Celeste Andrews. There's now a response from Celeste, his wife, who again is a current member of the Wilmington City Council. She said that the allegations must be evaluated thoroughly through a fair and impartial process based on evidence. She provided a statement to WECT News on Sunday night that reads as follows. These are serious allegations, and they must be evaluated through a fair and impartial process based on evidence. Prior to the March 27th communication, we had only engaged the New Hanover County Democrat Party's Council of Review and made formal submissions through the appropriate channels. We have serious concerns about the decision to circulate details and alleged and allegations broadly before any review had taken place, as this risks prejudicing the process and undermining its integrity, including with respect to potential witnesses. David, her husband, firmly disputes these allegations and is participating fully in the process. Because this matter is now pending before the council, we will not address any specific claims outside that forum and expect that this will be handled with fairness, neutrality, and procedural safeguards such as a matter requires. So this is a very interesting statement from Celeste Andrews saying essentially, well, we're not going to say anything. We're just going to wait for this process to play out. The new Hanover County Democrat Party leadership is, in fact, asking the state's Democratic Party Council of Review to remove David Andrews, who is currently the precinct chair of one of the precincts in New Hanover County, and to ban him from all future New Hanover County Democrat Party events. The grievance reads, when anyone is at a party-related event like a fundraiser or campaigning at a polling site or networking at a social event, they are there to work, fundraise, meet volunteers, meet voters, and represent the New Hanover County Democrat Party. They are not in attendance to be groped, insulted, harassed, or assaulted, wrote party leadership. So a very clear commentary there from the New Hanover County Democrat Party. The overall North Carolina Democrat Party's Council of Review will determine what they're going to do with this matter going forward. But this is just one story after another that is just painting a very, very disastrous picture for the New Hanover County Democrat Party, who I'll note just had a banner year in 2025, right? Sweeping the Wilmington City Council, now controlling that council as a completely Democrat body. 7 Democrats, 0 Republicans, including Democrat Mayor Bill Saffo. They had a banner year in 2025, flipping the council, which I'll note had a Democrat majority before, but at least there were a couple of Republican voices on there, like Charlie Rivenbark and Luke Waddell. Charlie decided not to run for re-election. Luke did and was unfortunately unsuccessful in his election in 2025. So there's a lot going on in I would argue, the positive direction for the local Democrat Party. You've got exclusive control over the Wilmington City Council. Coming up later this year, Democrats have the opportunity to flip the power on the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners from Republican to Democrat. There's currently 3 Republicans on the council, 2 Democrats. If the Democrats are able to win one of their seats and pick and win another, essentially winning 2 seats, they will flip the majority from 3-2 Republican Democrat to 3-2 Democrat Republican. They've got the opportunity to also flip the school board locally. There's a lot of very important races for Democrats locally. And to see this play out the way that it is now publicly, where you've got the New Hanover County Democrat Party, publishing this statement that was put out. It's a 7-page statement. There's a lot of details in it, kind of highlighting everything that has gone on. It's signed by all of the individuals that made these allegations. They're all signatures on there. They include Stephanie Walker, who is currently a member of the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners, that the Planned Parenthood director for the Southeast, and a couple of other individuals as well that attest that all of this stuff was in fact taking place. And so the question is, where does the Democrat Party go from here? Because this is a disaster of a situation. As I just laid out, there's a lot on the line for Democrats locally in 2026. They've got some major opportunities ahead of them, and you've got Celeste Andrews' husband, David Andrews, just acting completely out of control and very inappropriately. And this kind of, unfortunately, backs up a trend from where these 2 individuals were before they lived in the state of North Carolina. Following some details out of an article published by what was at the time called The Explorer back in 2010. So going back now some 16 years out in the Arizona area. At the time, David Andrews was the town manager for Oro Valley, Oro Valley town manager, and his now wife was a councilwoman at the time. Celette Lattis, Latas, was her maiden name when they got married. And according to details from this article, David Andrews was pressured to resign from his position as the town manager, citing a variety of different issues and problems that were taking place there. Celette, who was on council as a councilwoman, lost a primary election, I think in 2009 or 2010 when she ran for re-election, so was ousted by the Democrat Party. Her husband, at that time, presumably in a relationship, was ousted as the town manager. They both packed up shop and left Arizona and moved to North Carolina. And so there does appear to be at least some level of controversy following these two, whether it was their time out in Arizona, some allegations in Pender County not too many years ago as well, and now this most recent letter taking play, or these most recent set of allegations taking place in New Hanover County. And so it would appear obvious, at least from a track record standpoint, that these two are just prone to these kinds of controversies, which, according to details out of this article from Tucson, Arizona, which is where this article was published, the relationship between David Andrews and, at the time, Celette Lattis would have been a violation of town personnel policy forbidding nepotism. And so that was going on during that time as well. Both of them essentially ousted in different ways. This would seem to be a constant or at least some level of track record with these individuals, with these negative stories dragging everybody down. When you lose, when you're an elected official and you lose in a Democrat or Republican primary, when you are ousted by your own party after serving, that is not a good thing. That is something that should begin to raise some pretty serious flags. Yet that is what happened back more than 16 years ago. Celette Andrews was just rejected by voters in New Hanover County back just a couple of weeks ago in early March. Now with these allegations, this is a rough seas ahead for the local New Hanover County Democrat Party. We'll get into a couple more details on this, plus some of your comments coming up as well as the Nick Craig Show rolls on a Monday morning. Before that, I want to tell you about the Law Group here in Wilmington and thank them for their continued support of the program. When legal challenges arise, or if you have any legal questions, make sure you trust Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group here in Wilmington. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across eastern North Carolina. I used the Law Group, Melissa Gott and her team, when I was navigating a real estate transaction, purchasing my first home back almost 6 years ago, and the Law Group was phenomenal, absolutely fantastic every step of the way. Their dedicated team ensured that any questions that I had were answered as quickly as possible, and all the issues, any problems that came up, they dealt with very quickly. They're located in downtown Wilmington, not some big national law firm, and they're just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088, or online lawgroupnc.com. It's the Law Group. Experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate Melissa Gott, the Law Group, and their continued support here of the Nick Craig Show. All right, we'll grab a quick break. On the other side, some of your comments coming up, plus we'll round out this story about the local Democrat Party here in New Hanover County, the issues that they are dealing with, the issues they are facing, and how they move forward as we head into very important midterm elections coming up here in the latter part of 2026. We'll get into all of that as the Nick Craig Show rolls on a Monday morning, streaming live, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. And welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending some time with us here on a Monday. I want to remind you, coming up tomorrow night is our Nick Craig Show a monthly hangout. We jump on a Zoom call for a couple of hours each and every month, talk about all of the topics and news and issues of the day. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion over, the Iranian conflict, everything going on here in North Carolina, across the state as well. That is available for those that subscribe to the show over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. You can do that for as little as $5 or $10 a month if you believe that you are getting some value from the show and want access to our daily show notes and monthly hangouts. You can do that over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. You can also find the link over on the website, nickcraig.com. So continuing with some of these allegations and really rough seas ahead for the New Hanover County Democrat Party as we head deeper into 2026, we've got two major kind of controversies that we're, three really in total, that we're tracking this morning. We've got Rick Southerland, who ran as a Democrat in the primary election that took place earlier this month. He dropping out of the race after winning the primary back just a couple of weeks ago because it came to public light that he was living with an individual by the name of James Osborne, who pled guilty in the state of Virginia to possessing and obtaining child pornography. He is now a registered convicted sex offender. Rick Southerland, who, again, ran as a candidate, did not inform the Democrat Party of his living arrangements, did not inform the party of the tight connection between the two, and it caused an incredible amount of outrage and frustration, justifiably, that was not spoken. Now we're learning that James Osborne, the individual in question here, had falsely attested on multiple voter registration forms and ATV forms that he was in fact not a felon and was able to cast ballots in elections when he is still dealing with 15 years of supervised release. And so that story is now unfolding. You've got a federal criminal complaint that was filed last week with Osborne being arrested on Thursday, March the 26th, set to appear in a federal court in Wilmington tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. to deal with some of those charges. So we'll see how that plays out. And then the most recent scandals shocking the local Democrat Party. David Andrews, the husband of Wilmington City Councilwoman Celeste Andrews, is now being accused by the Democrat Party in a complaint filed by the party itself of aggressive behavior at events and sexual harassment against multiple women, both within and not within the New Hanover County Democrat Party. And so it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion, which it seems like the local Democrat Party is in complete and total disarray. And as I was just mentioning in the last segment, the Democrats have a lot on the line, not only in New Hanover County and in the Wilmington area, but across not only the state of North Carolina, but the nation in 2026. This is a midterm election. You've heard me say this before, but I'll reiterate this because I think it's important. Midterm elections typically are not very successful, very prosperous for the party that is in charge. And so when you look up at Washington, D.C., you see Republicans, of course, Donald Trump in the Oval Office, Republicans having the majority in the House and the Senate. Not that much work is being done there. That's a story for a later program. And so all math, all indications, historical trends, all of that would line up to the fact that Democrats are supposed to have a pretty good year in 2026. But there are a litany of different issues, both things that are very hyper-local, like this story in New Hanover County, statewide issues, and even national issues that can hurt and plague a party. And so if you're the Democrats, both at the national level, the state level, and the local level, this is the absolute last thing that you want to see, right? Because the wind is already pushing your sails in the right direction. It's a midterm election. Things do not go well for the party in charge during midterms. So you've got the momentum at your back. You've got the wind kind of carrying you, just coasting you down the line towards a victory in November. And now you've got these controversies starting to pop up locally. Nationally, the Democrat Party is, I would argue, is also in some level of disarray. There's an incredible amount of infighting going on. You had the David Hogg, who was the chairman of the National Democrat Party, resigning his position last year due to the fact that he was endorsing candidates, endorsing Democrats over other Democrats in primary elections. There is still no strong voice for the Democrat Party. I mean, they had all these No Kings protests taking place over the weekend, and nobody stands tall. You've got, I saw Jimmy Kimmel was at one in L.A. Chuck Schumer was at one in Washington, D.C. There's just a huge amount of disarray within the Democrat Party right now. Even with that, the likelihood of Democrats having some probably pretty strong levels of success later on this year is still very possible. But I think kind of zooming out on this a little bit and forecasting what things could look like as we head into 2028 is to me very interesting. And I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse on this. Obviously, we have midterms this year, and we're going to be paying very close attention to them right here on the Nick Craig Show. We'll be bringing you candidate interviews, all the details, everything that you need to know to make an informed vote coming up in November. But I'm looking at this from a larger, much broader scale, at least right now, as we round out our conversation on this Monday. The Democrat Party is still, to me, operating as kind of a rudderless ship. There's still no strong voice. There's still no leader. You can look at a variety of various political polls that have been conducted over the last couple of months. There is no clear individual who is popping up towards the top of the list as the Democrats' presidential candidate in 2028. Kamala Harris is still polling incredibly high, which I find to be rather shocking, just based on the fact of how poorly she performed in the 2024 elections against Donald Trump. And so it's a party that is still struggling. To me, it's a party that is still, and this is a much larger issue, going back now a decade, a party that is still struggling to find its identity. Since Donald Trump upset Hillary Clinton in 2016, in which Democrats, and I would even argue some Republicans, thought there was no chance that that would happen, I don't know that the Democrat Party has fully recovered from that. And I feel like you're still kind of seeing the aftermath of an election that took place, shockingly, all the way back in November of 2016. I mean, it's been literally almost 10 years since election night. And I do not believe that the party has fully recovered. It still seems to be very fractured. There still seems to be nobody that is really kind of running with the torch and leading that brand, right? You look at somebody like a Barack Obama, who was the great unifier for the Democrat Party, was the strong voice in the room, was the strong message leader, was the individual kind of setting the tone for Democrats at the national level, the state level, and the local level. That person doesn't exist right now. It's obviously not Joe Biden, right? He's sitting in front of a television watching reruns of some TV show from the 60s probably right now. So it's not him. Harris is a disaster of a candidate. Gavin Newsom has ruined the state of California. I mean, there's nobody leading that charge. And so I think this is going to be a very interesting trend, not to only follow as we head deeper into this year, but as we look forward to the big time general election coming forward in November of 2028. So very interesting program on this Monday morning. We'll keep you up to date with all of these details, all of these stories as they continue to take place as across New Hanover County and now the state of North Carolina, and the North Carolina Democrat Party being involved. And it's obviously not what you'd want to see if you were a Democrat. And for Republicans locally, I mean, to me, it's time to pounce on the disarray and the disaster that is the local Democrat Party. I mean, it's a complete and total mess. And so it is taking place right now, right in front of our own very eyes. We'll keep you up to date with the details right here on the Nick Craig Show. Well, that's going to do it for a Monday edition. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their support. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook. It's also available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app and is heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. Enjoy your Monday. We're back with you tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.